Hey guys, it's Lion here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing our wrap-up video for the month of July of 2023. It was a pretty wonderful month. I did get a lot of reading done, but not as much as I actually wanted to, because I actually did end up being a lot busier than I was expecting. I'm taking one summer class this year, and that summer class doesn't feel intensive at first glance, and I didn't think it was going to be. But as the weeks have gone by, and we're getting closer to the end of the semester, I've actually had to do a lot more work than I was anticipating, just because of the structure of the class. Since it's one of these classes that you have to do as an engineer in order to graduate, it's one of those things where like you just have a big project and you have to do a lot of work, and sometimes you have to work more than you were expecting, and it is what it is, but it's not really affecting me too much. But I did end up reading and watching a lot of stuff that I am interested in talking about. However, I am going to be splitting my recording into clips, and they're not going to be seamlessly put in because I'm just not that good at editing, and because I have to record at different times. So I apologize in advance for issues in lighting and changes in positioning of the camera and stuff like that. Maybe I shouldn't point it out, but then if you notice it before I point it out, it gets annoying. At least it does when I see stuff like that. So if I point it out first, maybe it's less annoying. I'm not really sure. It just shows that I'm unprofessional, but that's okay. This isn't my job. I'm just doing this for fun. So overall, it's fine. Yeah, before we actually get into this though, I do want to thank all of you guys again for helping me out with 1,000 subscribers. I am so happy that we got to this point, and I'm happy that we're slowly chugging towards possibly monetizing the channel. Not that it's a true goal of mine, but if we do get around to that, it makes keeping this hobby alive for myself a lot easier, in the sense that, like, hey, I'm spending all this time because I want to, but also it's giving me a little bit of an avenue of funds that is meaningful, right? So that's pretty helpful, and I'm really thankful for everyone that helps. I'm also really thankful that you guys have been showing out more than usual this month. I really do appreciate everyone that watches my videos. Thank you guys very much. I really do appreciate you, and I'm very happy about that. We're slowly chugging up to the next milestone, and we did reach 1,000 subscribers. I did say I was going to do a giveaway, and I haven't done it yet, and that's because I'm waiting on some books still. I was told that they were on their way, and they haven't arrived yet, so I just have to keep waiting until they do. I do have 6 books here. I have a little manga booklet that I want to give away as well, and then I'm going to buy another manga to give away. Or actually, it's going to be a manhwa. I'm going to try to get another copy of Solo Leveling to give away. And also, I'm waiting on the Tentai book to come here so I can give that out as well. So it should be about 8 books to give away. It should be a substantial giveaway, and a meaningful amount of books. And it does seem like I'm probably just going to do like a very basic, like, comment, subscribe. And in a few weeks time, I'll announce the winner. And you get to win, and you have to send me your address through some website. And I'll ship out the books to you, US only, because that's where I can send stuff at. Right now, I don't want to have to pay a huge extra fee in order to ship internationally. So apologize if you're not in the US, but the vast majority of my audience is. So it's pretty unlikely statistically that I'll end up having to send it out, and restricting that immediately is better for me. So yeah. Anyway, let's get into this. Let's start with the films. Okay, so starting with what I've been watching, the first thing I did watch was The Flash. I didn't hate the movie. I didn't really love it, and thinking back on it now, it is worse and worse the more I think about it. But also, I think that's just kind of par for the course for most DC movies. And so there's still a lot of things that I liked, like Sasha Calle's Supergirl was great. I don't like the actor, but Ezra Miller's performance was amazing. He did manage to capture 2 similar but also very distinct versions of the same character. Michael Keaton's inclusion was awesome. Some of the action pieces were really cool. The CGI was garbage, but that's just kind of what it is. It's, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I don't really have too much to say about this movie. Indiana Jones 5 was great. I think that I really enjoyed it because I'm not actually a super invested Indiana Jones fan. I broadly don't give a shit about the franchise. It's just, it is what it is. It's not something I care about too much. It's not something I hate. It's just kind of a thing that people seem to enjoy that was specifically for a group of people. I just happen to not be in that group. And so I could enjoy this just as a movie. And as a movie, I think it worked pretty well. I quite liked it. I had a good time with it. And it was fun overall. I watched one episode of Primal. I don't think I even finished the episode. I do want to watch more of it because I think it's really, really cool. But I just haven't had time to do that because I've been focusing on watching other things. I've watched every episode of My Adventures with Superman so far that has come out, and I'm really enjoying this show a lot. It's really, really, really enjoyable. I love the characterization. I really like the more honest, true, kind of like gentle Superman that we get. I really enjoy the dynamic he has with Jimmy, them being like college roommates basically, and also the crazy, bubbly, ridiculous energy of tomboy Lois Lane. I really enjoy how everything is working out. I really like it. There was some controversy recently over some of the things that she did in the last or in the newest episode that came out before this recording, where she jumps off a building in order to get Superman to catch her to prove that he's Clark Kent, which a lot of people were angry about because, oh my God, she's angry for no reason. Clark is right and she's wrong. And it's like, no, they're both wrong and they're both right because she's a psycho. Like she has this crazy, wacky energy for the first 4 episodes that clearly correlates with the fact that she would jump off the roof because she constantly put herself in danger in order to get the story. She's trying so hard to make sure that she gets what she wants in order to make her career better, in order to pursue the right thing, which is the truth. And her whirlwind romance that she recently met and is like head over heels for turns out to have been lying to her the whole time while constantly telling her that she should be better because she is a little bit too interested in things that maybe are dangerous. So he comes off as a hypocrite, and then he keeps denying the reality every time she brings it up. And so it makes sense that she'd go crazy and do something wacky. And she does, and he proves her right, and so she's angry. And it makes total sense for these characters and for the situation that these characters are in. There's nothing wrong with what happened. It works perfectly fine. It is correct within the interpretation of these characters. Just relax, man. It's fine. And if you're angry about it, you're the problem, not the story that's being told, because it's clearly set up that this is something that she would do. I don't know. It seems very clear to me, but I don't know. Overall, I'm really enjoying this show. I love the anime inspiration. I love the style. I love the characters a lot. I'm very, very happy with it. And the kind of friend being forgotten when the other friend gets a girlfriend aspect of the story with Jimmy is pretty interesting, and I think it's going to be something that's going to be relevant to the characterization here in this story. I doubt it's going to catch for the comics, but I can definitely see it happening, 20 years down the road when the people that are watching this show become writers, and so it'll be kind of interesting to see how that goes. I'm not really sure this is going to be a definitive Superman for many people, but it's going to be a good introduction for a lot of people, so I really like that. Then I watched season 2, part 2 of Record of Ragnarok, and overall, I'm not very happy with it. I'm pretty disappointed with the way that the anime is coming out. I think it started off well, and it was interesting enough for me to check out the manga, and I'm very much enjoying the manga. I really like that. But it's getting to the point where the anime is giving me diminishing returns, like more so than I already did, and the manga continues to be great. So I think I'll probably stop watching the anime after this season and just kind of focus on the manga for the rest of the time that I spend with this series, because there's no point in wasting my time watching something that I'm not enjoying, right? So yeah, then I watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. It's an amazing movie. I loved it. It was super long, but it also didn't feel long at all. It was wonderful. I loved it. I love Haley Atwell's inclusion. I think she does a great job, and her chemistry with Tom Cruise is amazing. Top Gun Maverick essentially made Tom Cruise my favorite actor, and this manages to keep him being my favorite actor because he's so good in this, and I really just enjoy the movies that he's in so much. They're so enjoyable and so fun. So yeah, overall, very good stuff here. Then I watched Skull Island Season 1, and it's not that bad. It's not that great either. This also sent me down this kind of crazy rabbit hole where I watched all of the other MonsterVerse movies, and they were all pretty good. I quite enjoyed them. The only one that's kind of iffy is Godzilla, like the first one, because it's like an hour before anything like relevant to Godzilla happens. Everything else is kind of set up, and I guess it is supposed to be like the equivalent of the first 100 pages of a epic fantasy novel where it's all world building, but it's just a little too much for a movie that's supposed to be a lot of interesting stuff happening all the time. The second half of that movie is fine, but the first half is a bit too slow. Everything else in the MonsterVerse is pretty fun, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's amazing cinema, but it's fun popcorn films, and I'm very happy that I watched all of them. I had a lot of good kind of fun moments with them. So yeah, then I ended up on a different type of rabbit hole, watching UFO things, because if you guys don't know, we recently had a congressional hearing where 3 witnesses, one of them being a pilot that saw a UFO craft or a UAP, another guy being this kind of like informant type guy that worked in the government, was part of some sort of secret UFO team, and then wanted to release stuff the public wasn't allowed to, and so he decided to become a whistleblower, who is honestly the one that has the least credibility out of the 3, because he kind of obfuscates a lot, so it makes it difficult to believe him. And then the other guy is this other guy. I think he was some sort of like safety officer, and he had witnesses, or he had a bunch of testimony from a bunch of other pilots that wanted to testify, but they didn't want to have their names associated with the thing, right? So basically, that hearing was going to happen, and in order to be interested in the hearing and know what was going on, I decided to watch some other things. So I watched a show called UFO Investigating the Unknown on Disney Plus. It's a completely serious documentary series. It's 5 episodes long. It actually used to be a Vice thing, and then it turned into a National Geographic thing, and then Disney put it on their platform, and it's really, really good. It's really compelling because it's not like Ancient Aliens, where it's just a bunch of random weirdos that wrote a book that want to sell it, so they're on the show. This is all very serious, real people. It's a journalist that's been around for 25 years writing about UFOs, that even made some of her stuff on the New York Times. There's a bunch of ex-military, ex-government type officials, and a bunch of scientists that are also talking about this. So all of it is very serious and very like honest and compelling, and it's really, really interesting because it's not about aliens. It's about the fact that there's things that fly in the sky that we don't know what they are, whether they're unidentified flying objects or unidentified aerial phenomena, in order to not define it as a ship, but rather as a different thing, and kind of change the association that people have with UFOs into something different. And it's basically more of a safety concern. It's like, there's these things that are here, we don't know what they are, we should know what they are, why is no one talking about this? And I thought that was really interesting, really compelling. Then it led me down this other rabbit hole into these other 2 movies, I guess. They're documentary movies called A Moment of Contact, which deals with this UFO sighting and situation that happened in Virginia in Brazil, in this place called Minas Gerais, I think. And then Phenomenon, which is just a kind of a more general thing about UFOs and alien contact, that has really, really interesting stuff. Like, there's a situation that happened in Australia and the situation that happened in South Africa. Both of them happened in schools, and the one in South Africa was actually like less than 25 years ago. So it's actually a very recent thing in terms of these like situations. So I watched all of that, and then I watched the hearing, and basically I got almost the exact same sort of information that I got from the 3 things that I mentioned. And so to me, it was a little bit disappointing, but ultimately I think it's about putting things on the record, and I thought it was really, really interesting. I have a very kind of general interest in UFOs and kind of aliens because I like sci-fi, and I think it's really, really cool. But honestly, it is a very scary concept that there's these creatures, whether they're hidden on Earth or from space or wherever they might be, that are so much more advanced than us, because it is like scary, right? Like New World Native Americans had to deal with Old World, Europeans, And those conflicts that ensued when they met were drastically horrifying to the Native Americans because they were significantly less advanced in terms of technology and stuff like that, right? We're basically the Native Americans. Like, the whole world is like the Native Americans in that context, and the aliens or the UFO people or whatever, the UAPs, would be like the Europeans in that context. And that means that we are essentially at their mercy. And that's really, really scary in a very kind of interesting way. But ultimately it is just kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want this to be true, but I'm very interested in it being so, because it seems really interesting and really cool and also quite scary, right? So yeah, but I'm not like a crazy UFO enthusiast or anything. I'm just kind of like, yeah, there's probably life elsewhere in the universe. It's possible that they come here, and if they do, what the heck, man? That's crazy, right? So yeah, but I really enjoyed all of these shows and things dealing with that, and I enjoyed everything that doesn't deal with that I watched this month, and I had a lot of fun with it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about Aliens and the Hearings if you guys saw them. Okay, and then let's get into novels here. So very quickly, I've only read 2 out of all of the things that I said I was going to read in terms of novels. So we have Tarzan and we have Flame and Steel. So let's start with Flame and Steel since I've read less of it. This is about 50 pages into the book. I'm 50 pages into the book. And so far I'm pretty interested. It's cool. It seems to be a purely fantasy type setting. It follows this kid who has some sort of unknown disease. I'm not really sure if he's like weak, like his legs are weak, or if he has asthma or what. The point is that he doesn't have the physical ability necessary to go out and be a warrior like the rest of his family seems to take a lot of pride in. And so even though he has a very great strategic mind, he's not able to fully work through that ability because he can't actually go into the field. However, we're starting out in this world via a war that is nearing its end or is being paused in order to reassess what's happening, because basically there's these 2 countries. One country that seems to be pretty average, you know, Western European, kind of like French or English. That is where our main character comes from. And there's this other country that to me reads a little bit like Spanish and Portuguese, but I'm not really sure. It could be something a little bit even further more like Arabic. I'm not really sure. I don't really understand the vibe there, but basically this second country has managed to develop actual like gun type weaponry. And so this is changing the dynamic of this pretty medieval style, you know, sword and armor type world. And so they're stopping the war to try to deal with that, right? And so they're kind of having this political envoy that has just arrived at this main character's house, and he's dealing with the princess or the daughter of one of the people from that other country. And as this happening, there's these like trade negotiations, this peace negotiations going on everywhere else. It's pretty interesting. I'm pretty excited about reading more of it, but I have noticed a few little key issues that are not huge, but they do denote this kind of level of unsophistication, like this level of like, hey, this might have needed one more pass in these specific areas in order to help the story not have any of those little nitpicks, little kind of like things that don't quite make sense that, you know, people are going to be much more aware of when they're reading a self-published work than if they were reading a traditionally published work, just because of the nuance that comes with the fact that, hey, this isn't technically built around a traditional group of people working on it, right? So, I think usually books have to overcome that more when they're self-published, but that's just kind of my opinion on that. So moving on to Tarzan here. This is book 4, The Son of Tarzan, introduces us to Korak the Killer, or, well, Korak means the killer. So anytime that people say Korak the Killer, they're being redundant, but the point is that it's like, it's important that you say both so you understand who you're talking to, because Tarzan, I think, means white ape or something. So it doesn't, like, the redundancy doesn't exist with Tarzan because no one calls humans ape, right? But it doesn't matter. The point is that the story's pretty good. It's actually kind of almost a new starting point for the story of Tarzan. So if you're not interested in the first 3 books, for whatever reason, you don't really care about the saga of Tarzan and Jane and Rokoff, you might not be interested in those stories. So maybe you can start here with Korak the Killer. It basically retreads a lot of these story points that are in the original Tarzan, but with a little bit of a twist, because now we follow Korak, or actually his name is Jack, who is the son of Tarzan, and he is basically a very rambunctious young man. He seems to be about 10 years old, I would think, and he has inherited his father's love for the wild in some sort of weird way. And he also has developed his father's kind of physique, because technically Tarzan comes from a pretty standard family, but because of his time in the wild and his basic like endless amount of hardship and also immensely natural kind of feeding style, he basically grew much larger than expected. He has these very huge, sinewy muscles, and somehow Jack, in this kind of pseudoscientific version of genetics, has managed to inherit a lot of that. And he has this love for the jungle. One day he wants to go find this ape. This ape turns out to be Akut from the previous novel, who happens to, against all odds, actually have a long memory, which is something that we've been told by the books many times the apes don't have. And he remembers Tarzan, and he swore loyalty to Tarzan in his own mind, and so he's constantly on the search for Tarzan. And so he ended up being this kind of circus show, and eventually Jack finds him, and Akut recognizes that Jack is part of Tarzan's family, and so he becomes friends with Jack, and eventually Jack learns the ape language, and they start to communicate. There's this kind of plot line where Paulvich spent 10 years in the jungle. He became this decrepit little leper person, and now that he has a chance at revenge, he takes it, and it's kind of ridiculous because he ends up dying, but eventually Jack ends up on a trip trying to get Akut back to the jungle, and in order to have this kind of adventure by himself, instead of having to go to school like his parents wanted him to. And, well, things happen, situations occur, and so Jack has to run into the jungle with Akut, and then he spends a year lost in the jungle at this point, and he becomes a new version of Tarzan, a much more savage version of Tarzan, in the sense that Korak, the killer, of course, has no issues with killing the same way. Like, Tarzan doesn't necessarily have issues with killing, but Tarzan does it a lot less than Korak does. Like, Korak constantly is like, okay, I'm gonna murder this, I'm gonna murder that, I'm gonna do this, and mostly it's for the fact that he wants to take things, but he doesn't know how to make them, and so he just destroys other people in order to get them. And so he spends a year lost in this kind of savagery, and at the point of the book where I'm in, basically he has recently found a young girl who happens to be his version of Paul Darno, who is, you know, this French character that becomes friends with Tarzan and brings him back to humanity. And this girl, I can't remember her name, basically is Korak's Paul, right? And so she's also his Jane. So it's kind of interesting how that works. And I quite like the relationship that they're in, the way that it works, because they're children, so they don't really have like a romantic relationship. They have this kind of like, they both feel this lack of human connection. And so when they find each other, they latch onto each other. And it's kind of this like puppy love situation that I'm guessing is going to eventually evolve into a much more serious thing, because Edgar Rice Burroughs does like to have his male character have a female character to accompany him. And also, when his male character has a son, his son also gets a female character to accompany him. And I'm not really sure where this girl is going to end up going. I don't know if she stays around, but I would assume so, based on the fact that, you know, Thuvia actually does kind of stay around later, at least from what I remember of the novels. But I don't know. Either way, the thing is that it's retreading the same kind of ground, but it is still so different in the sense that, like, the character is essentially like very different from Tarzan. And so it's very exciting and interesting because you're seeing this kind of slightly different vibe where Tarzan had no like human politeness, and so he adorned himself with it later, whereas Korak or Jack had all of this politeness, and then when he got to the jungle, he divested himself of it. And so even though they are essentially the same character in the sense that like they are the same type of person, the same archetype, fundamentally they're quite different because of that very tiny difference where one puts it on and the other one removes it. And I think it's really, really interesting. It's very compelling. I really enjoy how we get to describe the scenes where Korak is doing stuff. It's very dynamic. I don't know. I really enjoy the way that this story works. And I'm also liking that it's pretty linear. Whereas the previous book, which is really not my favorite, was very much like concurring plot lines that mix and matched and then eventually converge into a point. This one is literally just a straight line where there's only slight folds of the kind of storyline in order to provide context to further make the plot line straight, make it a straight going line. And I'm very happy with it. I'm quite enjoying the way that this is structured. I think that Edgar Rice Burroughs grew a lot, but also managed to refine his initial skills quite a bit. And he's showing off a lot and doing a great job with this novel. So I'm very happy with it. And I'm only about 80 pages in. So I still have about, half of the book left. And I'm very happy that I've read it and that I haven't rushed myself because I'm really, really enjoying this story quite a lot. And then you see Korak and the girl. However, they're depicted as adults here, even though in the story they're about 10 years old. So at least so far, maybe they do become older later, but that's it for the novels. And yeah, that's it for that. Let's move on to the comic books. So let me start with the single issue comic books that I have here. And I can't remember what order I have these in. So let's go this way. So we have Mighty Barbarians number 3. I already talked about this, but basically this was from last month. And my local comic book shop couldn't get it to me on time. So they got it to me at the beginning of this month. And I had a really fun time with this. I really enjoy this series a lot. Michael Moresi is doing great. And I liked it a lot. Then we have Heatseeker here, which is the new Gun Honey story, and it doesn't actually have to do with the Gun Honey. It's using the Gun Honey needing to escape from the end of the second season or the second volume of the story in order to launch this new story that deals with Dahlia Racer, who is this con artist essentially that also helps like underworld people that are not affiliated with governments but are also mercenaries or provide John Wick-esque services to disappear. And she's really, really good at her job. And it also ends up being a situation where she ends up having to join the fray, as it were, because people she works with are killed. Then we have No One number 4, which is really, really good. It continues to be this kind of Batman Year One-esque type story. And I really hope that we get around to getting more of the tokusatsu elements because I'm not necessarily bored of the Batman Year One type story, but it's a very different kind of thing from the rest of the Massiveverse, and I'm hoping we get to it being more similar here soon. Then we have Dominatrix here. I liked it. I probably will go and chase down the second issue, but I didn't like it as much as I was expecting to. I like the covers, and I like the concept of this, like, sexy lady in, like, almost nothing, kind of, like, fighting crime. But the story isn't really about that. It's more of, like, her stumbling on a situation that requires her to enter this like clandestine life because she accidentally took some drug that gives her super strength. And it's interesting, but it wasn't what I was expecting, so I'm not sure that I liked it as much as I thought about it. But the more I think about it, the more I do think I did like it. It's just because of it initially didn't meet my expectations. I was kind of not super interested in it initially, but now that I'm thinking about it, now that I'm used to the fact that it's different from what I was expecting, I think I like it a little bit more. So, yeah. Lord of the Jungle number 6 is the end of the story, although hopefully it's only the end of volume 1 and not the end of the whole story because, it kind of ends in a very unsatisfying way because it only tells you the first portion of Tarzan's life. So, I hope that we get the second part of it here soon. Dead Romance number 5 here. Really good stuff. I'm really liking this series a lot. I really enjoy this concept, so I'm very happy with it, and I love the artwork here. And this issue focused mostly on Honoria getting back with the Romans and the fact that they're going to have a big fight here soon. So, yeah. Mighty Barbarians number 4. This one introduces us to Thorgal, who is a Link Carter pastiche. I can't remember if he's a pastiche of Cole, Conan, or a Edgar Rice Burroughs character. I think he is a Conan pastiche because he is also a barbarian. And it's fun. It's enjoyable how they interact. I really like the relationship that Cole and Burka have in this story quite a bit. Then we have Red Sonja number 1. I really enjoyed this. Thorin Gornbreck does a really good job here with getting you interested in the story and interested in what's happening with Red Sonja, and kind of launching this new version of Red Sonja that is going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary here. And Walter Giovanni does a really good work with the artwork here too. Then we have Frank Frazetta's Tales of Sci Fantasy. I will be doing a video for this separately later. Probably, maybe not actually. It depends. But I didn't like this at all. This image that is supposed to be the basis for the story gives you this idea that there's this kind of like majestic moment happening between this woman and the shark. Maybe this implies this sort of connection between them, or this moment before disaster. But the story focuses nothing on any of those feelings. It actually just kind of decides to make the most fucked up version of a, like shark eating people type story ever, by not even focusing on the shark, but rather on these cannibal pirates. I didn't like it at all. It was very unenjoyable to read. It was just kind of like ugly and the grotesque for the sake of it, and there was nothing interesting about the story. So overall, I didn't like this one by whoever, Gregory, at all. So yeah. Death Dealer number 14, penultimate volume here. Medellin's artwork is great, except for the way that he draws the Sea Witch. I just don't like that she has this like huge like forehead, like her hair starts back here, and it just looks really awkward, especially compared to other renditions by other artists of the same character in the same series. So it comes off a little bit awkward, but I guess you get used to it, and the fact that it's about to end means that it doesn't really matter all that much. But Iverson continues to do a good job here with the storytelling. So yeah, basically the drums of war are sounding, and it's about time to get started. And so we're gathering the last little bit of allies that we can right before the start of the war. So overall, very good stuff here. I quite enjoyed this. Then we have Rogue Sun number 14. This continues the new story arc and starts getting us into the spiritual side of Rogue Sun here, where Dylan and his father, Marcus, are trapped inside the Sunstone, and they have to battle against older versions of Rogue Sun, specifically this Viking guy, who is their ancestor to an extent, I guess, who is trying to chase them down because Caleb, the guy that's actually in Dylan's body right now, has put out a price on their head, basically. It's like, if we get rid of these guys and capture them forever, that means that Caleb can maintain the body of Dylan for the rest of his life, and that's basically what he wants. So, yeah. Then we have Deadlucky number 7. This one starts the new story arc, and I like it. However, Vivi, at least her face, looks way worse than it used to in the previous stories, because with the introduction of the Massiverse 2023 crossover, I got to see a different version of Vivi that looked a lot more like I was expecting her to, because the way that this is drawn, Carlo Magno's art style is great, except for Vivi's face. Everything else works. And it's because Vivi's face, in order to convey this kind of sadness that she has, looks like she's like 70. It looks like Aunt May's face on like a 30-year-old's body, and it's really awkward. And because of how she was portrayed in the Massiverse 2023 crossover, it looks even worse than it did before. So it's going to be a complaint that I have for the rest of the story, but it's fine. Overall, it doesn't really take me out of the story all that much, just a little bit. So yeah, then we have Mothman number 2, and this one was fun. It's kind of enjoyable. It's kind of ridiculous. Basically, this guy accidentally is stranded in the in the middle of the U.S. somewhere, and he has to deal with the fact that this town is crazy, and it's really fun. So yeah. Okay, continuing on to the collected editions, we have Batman Death of the Family number 3, or actually Batman New 52 number 3, called Death of the Family, which introduces the Joker again into the story, and it leads to the Joker kind of messing with the Bat family dynamic by talking about secrets that they keep from each other, and it worked out well. It was a little bit too dark for my taste, especially with everything that I've been consuming lately being relatively not horrible and like dark. This was like a very kind of odd thing to read this month because it was just so dark and kind of like happiness zapping from like compared to everything else that I've read. So I can't say that I loved it. I can't say that I hated it either because a lot of the concepts here are really, really cool, but I don't know. It didn't really jive with everything else I was reading, and so it kind of had this very dark contrast that I didn't really love. So I don't know. I think that this is one that I have to come back and reread later in a different time of of my life, basically, or in a different situation where I'm feeling a little bit less like super happy, and I'm kind of more mellowed out, so that this doesn't have such a like distinct like sadness, like dark kind of vibe to it. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make any sense, but I don't know. I just wasn't in the right headspace to enjoy that story when I read it. Even though I liked it, like I didn't have anything negative to say about the story. My feelings while I was reading it were not really matching the vibe of the story. So, but Camelot 3000 though, that was really, really fun and really interesting. It does kind of have this like slight dourness to it too, because it is kind of like in an apocalyptic setting. But the thing is that it ultimately is about perseverance and stuff like that, right? Because it is an Arthurian type of thing. It is kind of like ultimately positive. And I had a fun time reading this, and it was really, really cool. Also, the concepts behind the story are really, really interesting. And the fact that this is kind of the first time that we get a maxi series, and the fact that it has so much kind of like meaning to the modern comic book industry is really, really cool. So I really like that. And I really enjoyed this, and the artwork here is really, really fantastic. So yeah, I already did a review for this, so I'm not really gonna say too much about it. And that's it for the comic books. So let's move on to the manga here. I'm gonna do them like in reverse order from how I read them. So we're gonna start with the last things here. So first of all, we have Spy Family 1, 2, and 3. And I love this. I really, really, really enjoyed my time with it. The first 2 volumes were not that great in the sense that I've already read them before. So a lot of the jokes didn't land as much as they did before because I already knew them. However, volume 3 is all new stuff, and I love the jokes here. I had a lot of fun with this. It was significantly funnier than the first 2. And I don't know if that was purely my experience because I've already am familiar with the other 2, or if it was like the author Tatsuya Endo's refinement of his funniness and his jokes getting better and better. I'm not really sure, but overall, I really, really enjoyed the story. I had a lot of fun with it. I like it a lot. I really enjoy all the characters, and Yuri is really funny because he's kind of ridiculous. But everyone is also like that. So I really, really enjoyed my time with my family, and I'm definitely going to continue reading it here soon. Then we have this series that is kind of not very common to see. I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about it on YouTube, but it's Juana and the Dragon in 7 Kingdoms, which is this kind of post-apocalyptic tribal log escort mission type story where this little girl, this human, is the last human alive, or you know, so you think at the beginning of the story, and she lives on this apocalyptic Earth, or maybe not apocalyptic, but rather post-apocalyptic Earth that has been overrun by these lizard people that are now the sentient species of the planet. And this guy here, Nied, takes in Juana, the little girl, and he takes her somewhere in order to see if she can find more information about her people. And along the way, both characters grow to enjoy each other's company, but also to grow as individuals. Juana becomes a kind of beacon of light for Nied. Nied grows a spine, becomes an adult. He kind of goes on his journey of self-discovery and stuff like that. However, the story wraps up too quickly because it was canceled, I think. And so that's why we only have 3 volumes. But also, Juana is supposed to speak Spanish throughout this book. And there's supposed to be a big language barrier. And the language barrier aspect works. However, the Spanish is very hit or miss because I actually speak Spanish and read Spanish. So a lot of the things that happen here either feel like gibberish or are inconsistent uses of language that are very off-putting. I don't know if this was initially intended by the author or if that was just how the American translation worked. Either way, someone along the way had to have brought a Spanish expert and chosen a single version of Spanish to use, and also made sure that none of the words that were spoken were gibberish at all, because a lot of them are, and it's really, really annoying, because it's like one of those videos that are like, what does this language sound like to people that don't speak it? And it's just kind of this like weird gibberish. That's what a lot of the dialogue that Juana says is like. And that's really off-putting because it's weird. And it feels, I don't want to say disrespectful, because I very much doubt it was intended that way. And I also like don't care that much. But it's annoying to the reader when you clearly understand both languages that are being spoken, and one of them is significantly less, portrayed significantly worse than the other one. And it's kind of annoying in that sense. If I knew any other language, I would say the same thing. Like if it was supposed to be French in English, I would have been kind of upset if the French was all gibberish. If it was, any other language that I might know, like Turkish, if it was Turkish and the Turkish version was like really shitty and the English aspect of the story was really, really good, I'd be pretty upset, because like, why is this gibberish when it's clearly a real language and you could clearly and easily get someone to tell you, hey, how do you say this stuff in this language? And it was just kind of off-putting in that sense. It's also very similar to what happened with Skull Island, if you guys watched my review, where basically there's a whole episode in Spanish, but the Spanish was spoken by an American, or at least it felt like it was spoken by an American. And so the dialogue, the way the dialogue flowed was bad. And also the pronunciation didn't feel realistic to someone that actually speaks Spanish from a country that speaks Spanish. It was like an American version of Spanish, which is a totally valid version of Spanish, because a lot of people speak like that here in the US, but it's not an accurate definition of that language, in the sense that like the vast majority of people that speak that language are going to be upset that that is the version of Spanish that you went with. So there you go. I don't know. It's kind of odd. And I understand that it's predominantly a me problem, because the vast majority of your average American manga reader probably won't have the same situations that I do, knowing Spanish and English, right? So I understand that. I totally am willing to take the L if my opinions are wrong on this, but I don't think they are. So yeah. Moving on though, I read I'm a wolf but my boss is a sheep, which is really, really good. I enjoyed this part of the story quite a bit, because we get a lot of development of these two characters right here. And we also get this really meaningful melodramatic moment between these two characters here at the end of the story. And I'm very happy about it. I had a lot of fun with it. Then we have Hitomi-chan is Shy with Strangers, volumes 4 and 5. And I liked it a lot. I have a lot of fun with this story. And there was a lot of growth. There's also kind of the start of the second year of the story. And also the fact that Hitomi and the boy, I can't remember his name, Usa, are kind of coming to terms with the fact that they like each other, and that might be meaningful to them later on in the future. So I quite like that. Then we have Furi-san is scary no matter what you say, or no matter what you say, Furi-san is scary. I mixed that up. And apparently this is the penultimate volume, which is kind of sad, because I feel like this could have gone on for at least 5 more. But it's very good, and it also somehow ended up having a lot of the same plot points that these two stories had. And maybe that's why it was why it's such a short book. I'm not really sure, but it was really, really good. And honestly, I feel like I should have read these during the winter, because most of these plot points here focus on the winter. Like even the character here has they're building a snowman here in the back. But overall, very, very good stuff. I'm really happy with this. And also, the characters come to terms with the fact that they like each other, and it seems like they're going to move on to having a relationship in the next volume, and that'll be fun. Then we have Komi number 25, which is basically just a giant Nerf war for the whole volume, and I really liked it. I thought it was really, really fun. Nothing much to say there. That's really all there is to it. Spider-Man Red, really, really good story, or Fake Red, sorry. If you like Spider-Man and you want to get into manga, this is the way to go. It's really, really fun. It's really cool. And it's not actually about Spider-Man. It's not about Peter. It's about this other kid called Yu, who somehow accidentally takes on the mantle of Spider-Man for a bit, then realizes how difficult it is to be a hero, but the fact that it's necessary and meaningful to be one. And so when he finds Peter, he does his best to save Peter so that he can return to being Spider-Man, and it works out really well. And there's a great kind of team up between the two characters at the end of the story that works really, really well. The only thing that I don't love here is the fact that it could have been a few chapters longer, but I think it was canceled in Japan because of low sales. So understandable, but I wish that they would have given the opportunity to finish off the story for the American audiences, which are most likely to buy this, right? So So yeah, then we have Eden Zero number 22. Really good stuff here, but I've said it before and I'll mention it again. Basically, I feel like I need to binge this series, and I think a lot of the more serious like storytelling, where it's more like episodic shonen storytelling, I feel like I probably need to read that in bulk in some way. I need to get used to doing that, because reading them individually makes it so that I don't really understand what's going on. There's lack of context, and that means that certain feelings that I'm supposed to feel are very muted, and that makes the enjoyment of the series quite a bit less. So I think I am going to go back and reread Eden Zero arc by arc later on. I don't know when, but I will do it at some point so that I can enjoy the story in a much better way. So yeah, but number 22 is cool. They fight against the dark stars of the Eden's 1, I think, and it's really, really cool. Here we have Beauty and the Feast, and this was really fun. I really enjoyed this. It looks like it's coming to a conclusion here soon. I think the story ends with 11 volumes, so we're only 3 away. And I'm really enjoying this. It focuses a lot on the relationship between the two characters. It kind of gets us into the point where they're admitting that they like each other, even if they haven't admitted it to each other yet. And we got this really cool little pinup here of Shuko in a baseball outfit, which I think is really, really cute. And I'm very excited to see where this goes. And we also get to see Shuko interacting with Yamato's little sister, which is really, really adorable. So yeah, then we have Sugumi Project number 1. This is a Japanese manga that was first published in France, which is really interesting. And it's really, really cool and really interesting. And I like it a lot. It's basically this post-apocalyptic situation where France has sent a kind of a Suicide Squad-esque retrieval team into the ruined lands of Japan in order to retrieve a secret weapon that has been there for a long time. And it seems like the secret weapon is this little girl and this tiger, who are the Sugumi Project, and Leon has to figure out how to interact with them, and then ultimately how to bring them back to France. However, it's probably that he's not going to do that, and he's going to end up teaming up with them and protecting them from the other Suicide Squad retrieval teams that they end up sending. And we have The Horizon, which is really, really good, super fast read, but I do wish that this was actually a comic book strip format, because there's an insane amount of these really gorgeous long spreads that just would have been much better if I didn't have the gutter laws here. And I don't know, the story is really, really good. It's kind of haunting and really honest and kind of serious about what it is. But there's also this element of like cuteness, or like I don't know, it doesn't feel as dour as it really should. At least it didn't feel like that to me. And I was really, really invested in this story. So I really liked it. I can't wait to get the other 2 volumes to finish off the collection there. And we have Dragon Maid in color, chromatic edition, and I really like this a lot. I had a lot of fun with it. I think the chapter selection was in general pretty good. However, I really wish that they would have started with the first 35 chapters of the story and then made most of the chapters here available in the second chromatic edition, and focused on just introducing all the characters in the first volume of this, and then made like choices for the fun interactions later on. The only issue I had was one of the chapters here kind of feels a little bit too ecchi compared to all the other ones picked, and it just felt a little bit out of place. But overall, it was really, really fun. I liked it, and I like the coloring here. I think it looks really, really great. So yeah, there you go. That's Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid in color. Then we have Bride Story number 4. I love these 2 characters. I think they're great, and I really love their story a lot. I really enjoy this story because it is technically about a family. But along the way, we also get introduced and have this kind of like anthology series of these other brides that tell you the story of this culture and the story of this place. And I really liked it. I think it's amazing. It's really, really wonderful. This story is so good. And it's a bit expensive to collect, but it works out, and I really find it to be very meaningful. Then we have Villain Saga number 13. I love this. I really, really like it. We also recently got information about the new collector editions, and they look gorgeous. They make me want to buy them and maybe double dip or get rid of my old ones. But the thing is that I only just recently caught up. I don't want to have to restart collecting them over again just because I want the new versions. So I'm kind of on an impasse here where I don't know what to do. What I'll probably end up doing is waiting until I can get a good deal on the first volume of the new edition and then get it and decide from there what I want to do. So I don't know. It's gonna be kind of annoying to deal with it, but that's just kind of how it goes now with this kind of modern market that we have here, where everything is just about continuous upgrades and making things better, but also kind of trying to get as much money out of your consumer as possible. So it is what it is. But overall, I had a lot of fun with everything that I read and watched this month, and I'm very happy with it. I did not manage to reach my full TBR goals. I did miss some novels here and there, and I completely forgot about all the stuff that I said I was going to read from the previous months. But it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. At least I got down through all of the stuff that was new to my list. So generally speaking, I'm pretty happy with what I read and what I watched and how it kind of moved my journey here forward. So overall, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know what you guys thought down below. Let me know what you guys read during this month, and thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.